All right, so a couple weeks ago, I called into this cash practice and acted basically as a potential patient. And within the first like 5 to 10 seconds, I knew why this practice was losing leads and having a hard time booking new patient evals. And so in this video and in this training, I'm going to show you exactly how to go from losing leads on that first phone call to doubling your new patient evaluations without having to find a bunch of new patients. And so here's the three things I want to cover. Number one, I want to cover that kind of exact word for word scripting on how you overcome insurance and cost objections, especially within the first kind of 5 to 20 seconds of that first phone call. Number two, I want to talk about how you actually guide those phone conversations after that so you can prevent these objections on the back end. And then number three, I want to talk about the harder part of this is how do you actually get your front desk staff to actually implement the changes that you're talking about? And so by the end of this video, what I promise you will know is how to improve that first phone call so that you can book 50% more evals and have more patients coming in to actually purchase a package or a plan of care with you, right? And so this is going to be a solid training, especially because I talk to so many practice owners who struggle with this exact topic. They've either burned through a lot of front desk, or gosh, I've even like called and recorded the call and send it over to the practice owner, and their jaws are kind of like always on the floor because they're just like shocked at what they hear. They're just like, "Wow, I didn't realize that our calls were that bad." And I think it's tough because like I've been in those positions too, like in my practice where I was super busy. I was treating patients, like I just didn't have the time to get in the weeds with this. And it's like, well, like our practice is good, like we're making revenue, but it could have been so much better. Like, and I think I've shared this story a lot, but it's like I was losing 10K a month in my practice once upon a time just on paid advertising because I just wasn't listening and taking care of these first phone calls. And so what I don't want you guys to leave with here is like you just kind of continue to deal with these problems that are popping up on the phone. And so when I typically call these practices, what actually happens? So I always ask them from the start of the call, "Hey, do you take my insurance?" And you know that that's what these people are going to ask. They always ask. It's the first thing they want to know about. And they're coming to the table because they don't know what else to ask with, "Hey, I want to know what the cost is and do you take my insurance, yes or no?" And then your front desk is trying the very best to tell the potential patient on the phone what it's like to actually work with you. And so you have these conflicting viewpoints and conflicting goals on the call, right? And so we have to have a very simple way to overcome that initial block that's happening. Because if we don't, right, what's going to happen? These people are going to hang up the phone and they're never going to call you again. And that's obviously what we don't want to have happen. But we also want to be ethical and we don't want to be sleazy salespeople either, right? And so there's this delicate, tough balance as we're looking to handle these things. And so I want to talk about the exact scripting that I use now when I'm looking to overcome this. And I don't script my entire phone call, but this is definitely something that needs to be scripted. It needs to be ingrained in your mind if you're taking the calls, or your front desk if it's you, if it's them taking it. And it is, what is your response to that question? The common mistake I see to "do you take my insurance" is, no, I don't, we don't take insurance. Or no, we're out of network. And some of them will just leave it right there, and it's like, within 5 seconds, we've kind of lost this person already. And they're like, okay, well, like I need to go somewhere in network, or their next question is, well, what does it cost? And most of you guys, if you're cash, your service is decently priced, right? Like it's kind of expensive, at least in the patient's eyes. And so now when we're talking about a $225, I'm just using our prices, a $225 service, and we're talking about that within 30 seconds of meeting somebody, what's the likelihood that this person actually wants to book? It's zero, right? Like there's no value that's been provided. That's like you showing up to Starbucks and suddenly the menu prices have like gone 10 times what they were before. So instead of your coffee being $5, it's now $50, right? It's like, whoa, what changed? Like I don't have any context for this. But if they told you, "Oh yeah, it comes with this like super special milk now that like purifies your blood," or something crazy, right? Like they've talked about what that value actually is, then suddenly there's probably going to be some people that actually pay for it, right? And so we have to provide value before we talk about cost. And so the way to do that is I have to get over that initial question. I like to have a simple phrase to do that. Hey, do you take my insurance? You know, first off, I sometimes like to just get the name. Hey, John, totally happy to chat about insurance and those kind of things. Or, hey, totally happy to chat about insurance. I didn't get your name. Oh, yeah, it's John. Okay. Hey, John. I just wanted to, typically before we talk about insurance, everything's a little bit different. I just want to make sure it's something I can help you with. And once I know it's something I can help you with, then we can talk about cost and insurance and how we could potentially get them involved. How does that sound? And then now you have basically deflected that and you've gone right into being the driver of that phone call. And so I absolutely need to acknowledge it. Don't swing the pendulum here and basically say, "Hey, hey, John, let's chat a little bit," and then you just kind of like start bulldozing him with questions, right? Like if you didn't really acknowledge it, and now it's going to be kind of burning in the back of their mind, and they're probably going to ask it again. And so I want to acknowledge it. So you noticed how I did that. Hey, we can definitely chat about insurance. I'll be happy to share all the details of it. Every single insurance is a little bit different. And before we talk about that, I just want to make sure it's something I can help with. So, do you mind if we chat and make sure it's something I can help with? And then at that point, we can obviously talk about cost and insurance in much greater detail once I have an idea of what's going on. How's that sound? And 9.99 out of 10 times, people are totally cool with it. Every once in a blue moon, you get somebody who's just kind of like gonna bulldoze. You're like, no, I just need to know if you take my insurance, and that's fine. I'll usually just disclose it at that point and kind of like turn them to the side, right? Because it's like, but majority of the time, if you phrase it exactly how I just did, it's very rare that somebody says something otherwise. And so now that scripting needs to be very natural. It can't sound awkward. It can't sound like you're reading from something. Your front desk needs to be able to believe in it as well. And so you're going to have to probably rehearse that a little bit, practice it, make sure you feel good about it. Obviously, you can tweak the language a little bit to make it fit your culture and kind of those things that might flow with your office. But again, I want to finish my phone call with transparency around that, but I got to get over the initial hurdle. And so many practices aren't getting over the initial hurdle. It is you're getting somebody, you've done the hard work, you've got them to call, right? You've all this marketing effort, or maybe you're spending money on ads. But if you're just burning through that initial point, you're going to have a hard time growing. It's going to be nearly impossible, right? Because essentially 50+% of your leads have dropped off at that point, and that's not what you want to have happen. It doesn't matter any amount of marketing that you do. And so if you some people will push back as they watch this video, like, I just don't feel comfortable saying that. And it's, you kind of have to determine, am I okay with my practice being stuck? Or do I actually need to make a change and implement that? And so many practice owners either A, they don't know what's going on, or they do know what's going on and they just kind of tolerate it. And you have to overcome that if you expect any amount of growth or for you to actually reach the goals that you have in your practice, right? So after we get over that initial hump, the initial like insurance piece is obviously like the biggest time that somebody's going to ask about insurance or bring up that objection. The other most common place that people bring up cost and insurance objections is at the very end of the phone call. So now you've maybe asked them some questions, you've maybe told them what it's like to work with you potentially, right? And then now we're starting to bring up cost and insurance a little bit. And this typically where they'll be like, oh, well, like, what's it cost? Or so insurance doesn't cover any of that. That's just where this next friction point comes up. Now, I'll talk about how to approach that. But the big thing is I want to talk about how to prevent this from happening altogether. Now, if we can do a solid discovery on the phone call, it really does prevent a lot of these insurance objections on the back end. What do I mean by that? Most of the time when I call into practices, it is no, we don't take your insurance. I'm out of, we're out of network. And then they'll proceed to bulldoze me with information about why we're the best clinic, why we do what we do, why we're out of network, all of these kind of things. And really, people are inherently selfish, right? They just want to know how you're going to help me get where I want to go. And if I just blast them with information about what we do, all the gadgets and gizmos and all these things, it's confusing to them. They don't understand. And so the best way to overcome that is for your front desk or you to carry a conversation with that person and ask skilled questions around what their problem is and ultimately what their goals are. Now, PT, Chiro, functional med, like that world, it's mostly pain that's the problem, right? And it's keeping them from doing something. Now, in other worlds, right? Dentistry, for example, generally, sometimes it's pain, but generally it's more, hey, I'm looking for a new dentist. And we need to know why they are looking for a new dentist, right? Like what is it that they're looking for? And then I want to know what their goals are, right? It has to be beyond just getting out of pain, right? Maybe they want to get back to walking around with their kids or grandkids, or maybe they're just really proactive about their health and they don't want to age poorly, right? Like you just have to figure out what that goal is and get out of the very superficial, which is, hey, I've got some knee pain and I want to get rid of it, right? Like it's just a very superficial answer. Everybody can solve that. And so when you get them to verbalize what that looks like, generally over the course of 10 to 12 minutes in that discovery, now suddenly someone is much more inclined to actually want to spend money in working with you because your front desk or you has created a really nice impression, right? They think you're really nice because you spent time talking to them. You spent time answering their questions, and they're much more inclined to trust you. And it's the same thing as if you just walked up to somebody on the street and they asked you for $50, you're probably not very inclined to give it to them. Versus if you just had an entire lunch date with somebody or a coffee date and you spent an hour to an hour and a half talking with them about life and those kind of things, and they ask you for $50, it's going to be much easier to trust that person, right? And it's the same situation as we're on the phone call. We have to establish trust and likability. And that's where that discovery call, the discovery portion of that call goes a long way. And in most cases, what I see successful in our practice, as well as the practices we work with, is generally 10 to 15 minutes of discovery where I'm asking questions, I'm listening, and I'm asking follow up questions to that. And if you're unsure what to ask, I literally have an entire like question asking script in our free front desk school community. I'll obviously link it below, or if you're already in there, feel free to shoot me a direct message and I can also send that to you. But I need to have the right questions because now what happens is when they get to the very end, it seems like a no-brainer to work with you, right? They trust you, they like you already. You've told them how it works, and you've told them how you're going to help them. And so now we want to be very transparent, right? You never want somebody to show up not knowing what the cost is and that you're out of network. There's some people that teach this really sleazy technique of like, hey, you just want to get them in the clinic at whatever cost, and then you can blindside them with this large package or large cost once they get in. You're going to make some people mad, and you're probably going to get some like one-star Google reviews that way. So you need to finish the phone call telling them exactly what the cost is. You need to tell them that they're out of network, and you need to tell them, that everybody who comes and sees you is out of network, right? Like I literally say, like if you, it's in our script, right? Hey, all of our patients, they do have insurance. They just choose not to use it because of the quality of care that they get from us. And I don't pick any bones about it. And I don't get all like flustered or anything like that because I know what they get at the in network clinic versus what they're getting with us. And it's rock freaking solid compared, right? And so uh, we want to finish with that transparent piece. And then at that point, yeah, you may need some scripting and those kind of things to handle some of these objections if they do still pop up. Inherently, some people are still skeptical, right? And that's fine. That's human nature. But you're much more likely to overcome that objection with a solid discovery. What most people try to do is they try to just have some cutesy language to overcome the objection, and that works only a small subset of the time, and you're going to lose a lot of leads that way. So, we talked about how to overcome it at the beginning. We've talked about how to guide the conversation, kind of be in control, asking lots of questions over the course of 10 to 15 minutes. Now, if we can implement this stuff, you're going to double your new patient bookings. Like it's crazy to me. All these inquiries and people that are reaching out, you'll be able to actually get them to show up for their first visit, whatever that looks like for your practice. However, the next big challenge of this is obviously getting your front desk to buy into this exact idea. How do I get my front desk staff to actually follow this stuff and actually implement it as well as you, the owner, can, right? Because I guarantee you, if you, the owner, like jumped on these phone calls and you used exactly the scripting I would have, you'd probably be able to schedule people. But that's not a sustainable business model, right? And so we have to be able to get the front desk staff to buy into it. And I think the front desk staff is generally resistant to buying into change because when most like practice owners, they're busy, they'll implement a change and they'll have this big meeting about it and then they never bring it up again. There's no metrics we're tracking, there's no accountability. It's I meet once a month or once every 6 months because I'm freaking out about a problem we have. And lo and behold, nothing changes, right? Or we get turnover at 6 months, and now I'm kind of back to square one again. It's like, yeah, this is so frustrating, right? And so the biggest thing with this is, hey, we need to write down exactly what I want them to say. If they don't have, and you can video yourself doing it as well, have multiple forms that these people can learn from. But I need to, at a very minimum, if you do nothing else at the end of this video, in this training, just take the first initial portion of this, write it down on a Google Doc or a piece of paper, and literally paste it on their computer. This is what I want you to say if somebody asks about insurance. And then follow up with them about it, right? Or pull a phone call recording. I hope your phone calls are recorded. If not, definitely pull the recordings out. But those two, like as simple as writing it down, this is what I want you to do, right? Because now it's right there in front of them. And then follow up with them in a week about it. Preferably sooner, but a week at a minimum, right? Or at a maximum. It's like, hey, I just want to continue to keep that top of mind. And if you can keep it top of mind, you're at least giving yourself a chance to carry a conversation with these people. Now, certainly diving into the discovery, that's a whole nother like realm of teaching and coaching that needs to happen. But if we can, at a very minimum, overcome that first initial hurdle, now you give yourself a fighting chance. But too many cash practices think they need more new patients, and they got plenty of new patients reaching out. They're just not booking enough of them when they're actually reaching out. And so you can continue to pour more money into marketing, more time, hitting the pavement, doing local networking, paid advertising, all of the above. You're going to have a hard time booking these folks if or and growing your practice if you can't overcome this bottleneck within the first kind of 20, 30 seconds of your phone call. So now that you know how to overcome that initially, there's some other additional trainings we have about diving in much deeper on the discovery. That would be the next thing I would check out, and check those trainings out inside of our school community or our YouTube channel.